Can everyone see the front page okay with the top 3 things to do with your dog during lockdown?
Yes.
Excellent. Oh, there's more people coming in. Just have to keep letting people in as and when they come in. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Right, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute you all just so that we can't kind of hear each other talking. But then what I'll do at the end of the session is there's going to be time for questions. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, if you just make a note of them for now, and then I can answer any questions that you've got at the end. You might want to make notes on the stuff, but I can always, because it's on a PowerPoint, I can always send you the handouts afterwards. So if you want me to send out the handouts, then I can do. That's absolutely fine. So I will mute you all. There we go, and then we can get started. Right, okay. So we're just going to go through some bits and pieces that I've been talking a lot about with everyone this week in terms of what we can do to kind of make sure that our dogs are as happy and settled as they can be with the kind of the current situation that we're in. What I'm finding is that even though Joey doesn't need a lot of walks, we still go out a couple of times a day rather than kind of one big long walk. So our routine's a little bit all over the place, and he's a lot more unsettled because of that. So especially in the evenings, he seems to be quite good and settled in the mornings. And then in the evenings, he's kind of pacing around a little bit and sort of doesn't really know what to do with himself. So, and I think a lot of our dogs are the same, especially if they're much younger dogs. So from a younger dog's point of view, you not only are you missing out on the exercise, but to some extent you're missing out a little bit on the socialization as well. So that's an extra worry. You're only taking them out once a day, so that's only once a day when they're getting exposed to new and different things. And that's the only time of day that they're getting their exercise as well. So again, with the younger puppies where you might do sort of 2 half-an-hour walks with them, you're having to make that decision to either just do 1 half-an-hour or go out for a big long hour, which might be a bit much for them, especially if it's warm like it is today as well. So the whole kind of idea behind this webinar this afternoon is to be giving you some ideas so that you're not only are you making the most of your walks when you are going out and about on walks, but also giving you some ideas for other things that you can be doing when you're at home with your dogs as well. And hopefully that will help settle them. I've had quite a lot of people getting in touch with me just because of the fact that they're working at home, because they're at home all day and their dogs aren't used to them being at home all day. That's kind of unsettling their routine as well. So it means that they're wondering if they should be settling down, whether you're about to start playing with them, whether you're about to go for a walk with them. So it's confusing for them. It's stressful for us, isn't it? And it's difficult for us, but it's also the same for our dogs, and our dogs don't really understand why it's going on, whereas we do. I'm sure a lot of dogs are absolutely loving it, but just having us around a bit more, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be helpful for them when we do get back to normal in the future. So I'm trying to work out how to move on to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, so yeah, the problem. So obviously we're at home more, which, although it's good for our dogs for us to be at home more because they're not being left on their own, in a way it's not good because it's not realistic as to what's going to be happening when we go back to normal. We're only allowed once a day and everyone is tired and stressed, us more so than our dogs. So the solution, these are the 3 things that we're going to be going through with a little extra one at the bottom. So we're going to be talking about routine and kind of sticking to your routine as much as possible and trying almost to recreate the routine that you would have if you were going to be out and about. We're going to be talking about how to make the most of your walks, And really simply, we're going to make our meal times into games. So we're going to turn our meal times from meals into activities. Well, there's Debbie wanting to come in. And then at the bottom there, that's obviously not for dogs, that's for humans, is wine and chocolate, which is definitely helping me through things. So that's our solution. So I'm going to work through each of these one at a time. So I'm going to talk through routine, then we're going to go through making the most of your walks, and then we're going to talk about how to make our meal times into games afterwards. So routine. As much as possible, the best thing that you can do is try and replicate your usual routine that you'd normally be doing. Now, I have to confess that I'm not doing that, and I probably should be. So our normal routine is Joey has his breakfast first thing, and then we would walk to school together in the morning. So that's sort of his first walk of the day. And then he then either has another walk when I go and do school pickup later on, or he might have a walk during the day when I'm doing a walk with another dog as well. So I double him up with another dog then. So he gets probably 2 half-hour walks a day normally. And now we've gone to this silly routine where we're having quite a lazy morning, and then we're going out for a walk at about 4 or 5, which is totally unusual for him, which is probably why he's going to be unsettled in the evening. So we want to try and make sure that any walks or any kind of training times or activities that we're having are happening at the same sort of time that they would normally happen, as much as possible. You know, give or take an hour or so. You know, it doesn't have to be on the dot of the normal time that you will be on, but if it can be similar, that'll be really helpful for them. And the reason that's going to help is because they'll then know when to settle down and have a nap or just chill out on their own. So if you think about it, so using my example, once Joey's had that walk in the morning when I've done school run, after that I'm either doing some work at home, or I'm seeing a client or something like that, or going out and about and doing jobs. And he knows that once he's had that walk, nothing's going to happen for him then. Nothing interesting is going to happen. So he will settle down for a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours, and he will just sleep because he knows nothing else is happening then. And that's why it's so important to have our walks at the same sort of time, because they know that in between times nothing is happening. So if normally you go out to work in the morning and maybe you pop back at lunchtime to take them out again, that kind of mid-morning period of time, that's when you want them to be settling down and napping. And it might even mean that you're having to put them in their crate. So if they're normally settling in a crate, I would keep doing that. I would keep putting them in their crate. Even though you don't need to be putting them in there, it's good practice to keep them going in there. Or it might be that they're in a room and you're in a different room from them so that they're left undisturbed. Or even that you go upstairs. So just so that it's very obvious that you're not doing anything with them. This is going to be more difficult, obviously, if you've got the kids at home. So if the kids are at home, it's even more important to use either a crate or have them in a different room so that they can have somewhere quiet to settle down away from everything else. So they need to know during that time that nothing interesting is happening. So it's important that the kids leave them alone as well during that time, that it's basically, it's quite boring for them during their settling down time, so that they think, well, I may as well go to sleep. And then it might be that you have a similar kind of setup in the afternoon where they've had a walk at lunchtime, and then they have another couple of hours in the afternoon where they're napping again before you get back from work. So we need to make sure that they're getting that kind of that decent couple of hours mid-morning walk, and then the same again in the mid-afternoon as well. If they don't get enough naps, even with older dogs as well, but more so with puppies, they're going to be really unsettled in the evening. So with puppies, they'll start being silly and mouthing and biting and jumping up and stealing things and running up and things like that if they're overtired. And older dogs will probably do what Joey's doing, where they're just finding it difficult to settle and he's going from one room to the other and not really knowing what to do. So if we've set our times for our activities, and that includes exercise, training, play sessions, then in between those activities, it should be settling down and nap time for them. And then the other thing, in going along the same sort of lines, is having a set time for meals as well. So if they're expecting a meal, they're not going to settle down. If they know, well, I should be having a meal around now, they're not going to settle down. So if it gets to sort of 4 or 5 o'clock, and that's normally the time that they have their tea, and you're not feeding them till 7 or 8 because you're out of your routine, they're going to have a few hours where they're kind of following you around waiting for their food. That's why it's important that the meal times are set as well, and as much as possible similar to to what you'd normally be doing kind of during, you know, during the working week. That's what we're going to try and do with our routine. What I think might be helpful is to do something similar to what I've done here. So I've done a bit of an example schedule. So as I say, I'm happy to send this over to you if you want me to, just let me know. So I've just done a bit of an example daily schedule, which roughly kind of replicates what we do and also what I think a lot of people do that are going out during the day for work or to school or what have you. So we've got meal times, then kind of some sort of activity there. So it might be a bit of a play in the garden. For us, it's walking to the school run. And then we've got nap time, and then it might be another activity at lunchtime. So you might have a Kong or something like that then. And then if they're a puppy, obviously they'll be having lunch as well. So you'd need to include that. Then there might be a nap in the afternoon. And then some sort of activity again mid-afternoon. So again, for us, that's normally walking to do school pickup. And then what you should probably do is have an extra nap time then in the evening if you've got a puppy, or even if you've got an older dog as well. So it might be they have their tea and then they have a couple of hours sleep again then. But then to get them set up for bedtime, you do some kind of little activity with them again then. So pretty much once Joey's had his tea, he's down for the night because he's an old boy. He's happy to settle down. But if you've got a younger dog, that might be a good time to do sort of an evening activity with them then. And that activity, that can be playing with them, it can be training, it can be scent work, it can be one of your walks. And if it's easy for you to mix and match, that's fine, you can mix and match. But I think from our dog's point of view, it would be better if they knew that morning was going to be a walk, lunchtime was going to be playtime, evening was going to be training, or something like that, something in that kind of order. So as I say, if you want me to send that over, I can do, but it's definitely worth doing one of your own if that's a bit different from what you're doing. It'll really help them. I'm finding getting up and doing a routine is helping me as well. I don't know about you, but I think we benefit from a routine as much as our dogs do, really. Okay, so that's our routine. So when I talk about walks next, so I've talked about making the most of your walks, and this is something that we do anyway with our dog walking clients, is that we're not just taking them up for a walk. It's not just putting the lead on, leaving the house, off you go sort of thing. We're doing lots of things whilst we're on that walk as well with them, because often we've only got them for half an hour or an hour, and we want to make sure that we're making the most of that walk. So I want you to be doing a similar kind of thing. You can kind of follow the sort of thing that we will be doing out and about on a walk with them. And what we try and do on our walks is we try and make sure that we're combining, as well as the walk, we're always combining some sort of training, some sort of a scent work activity, and some sort of play as well. So we're always trying to include those three things when we go for a walk with them. So I'm going to go through each of these in a little bit more detail for you. So your training is just what it says, basically. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. So if you're really into your training and your dog knows loads of tricks, brilliant, you know, you can incorporate those into a walk. If your dog only knows the basics, that's fine as well. So nearly all dogs know a sit. So getting them to do a sit every now and then on a walk is just normally quite easy to do. I like to do sit for crossing the road, because obviously that's a safety aspect as well. You could add in, if you've got quite a giddy bouncy dog, you could do sit for every time a person walks past or every time a car goes past. So I think it's helpful to have a bit of a cue. So if you know, right, when I see a person, I'm going to get them to do a sit, or when I see a car, I'm going to get them to do a sit, or when we cross the road, I'm going to get them to do a sit. It'll just prompt you to do it rather than having to kind of remember to do it. So even if they only know sit, then I would stick with that. The other one which is good to do is a watch. I wouldn't normally get them to do a lie down on a walk, because a lot of dogs are uncomfortable doing a lie down, especially obviously if it's wet or muddy. So I would leave out your lie down and maybe do a watch. And a watch is just getting them to look up at you. And in its simplest terms, you could just do it as a name response exercise. So it could just be that you say your dog's name, and then when they look at you, you reward them for it. So again, you could do this either when you're crossing the road. You could do it if you see another dog in the distance. You could ask them to watch you first of all before they kind of get distracted by the other dog. So it's just getting them to check back. And then the other thing that you can do with that as well is you can actually reward any voluntary watches that they might do. So because we're kind of staying connected with our dogs throughout the walk, what's nice to kind of happen is if they keep checking back and looking at us. And if they do that, we can reward them for that as well. So if every now and then they're just kind of looking back, checking in with you, making sure you're still there, we can reward that as well. Because doing something like that, it will really benefit your lead work because they're not going to be pulling as much, and it will benefit your recall as well. So that brings us on to the next one, which is the recall exercise. So recall, obviously, if they're off lead, you'd probably be doing that anyway. Now, I know a lot of people aren't letting their dogs off lead at the moment. Obviously, there's the risk that if they are off the lead, they're going to run off and you're going to need to go over to somebody and get quite close to them to get your dog back, which we don't want. But even if they are still on the lead, you can still practice your recall. You can let them go to the end of the lead, and then maybe while they're having a bit of a sniff or something, you can call their name and then reward them for coming back to you. And doing that is actually going to benefit your recall when you are able to let them off lead. So it's going to benefit things when you go back to normal. And what would be really nice is if you start kind of incorporating these training exercises into your walks now, you sit and you watch and you recall, you should find that you'll start to have a real improvement in your walks anyway, because they're going to be much more focused, they're going to be listening to you, and they're going to be more responsive. So it will benefit your, as I said before, it will benefit your lead work and your recall generally just by adding those little training exercises into your walk. Okay, you might want to add other things. So it might be paw's often a good one to put in there, or it might be that they know some cool tricks like spin or touch or something like that. But the idea is it's just to give them something to do, to keep them focused on you and to get their brains working. So it's not just they're on a walk, they're on the end of the lead, they're off, they're doing their own thing. They're on a walk with you. It's not you're two separate things on a walk. You're doing this walk thing together. Okay, so that's your training. The next thing which is going to be really helpful is scent work. So I go on about scent work a lot just because it's such a simple way to tire our dogs out, and it really does tire them out. So I've put a few ideas here of what you can be doing for scent work on your walks, and you can do all of these on lead or off lead as well. So your easiest one, if they've not done it before, is just to scatter some treats on the floor for them to find. So literally take 5 or 6 treats, just chuck them on the floor. If they've not done it before, you might have to show them where the treats are to help them out. So you might have to kind of point towards the treats and encourage them to find them. And what I do is I say find it at the same time, so that after a while they learn that when you say find it, it means there's something to look for. Have a sniff because there's something there to find. So we're actually teaching them a new word there as well. We're teaching them what find it means. So scattering treats on the floor is a really nice, easy one to do. If they're good at that, you can move on to the next one, which is hiding treats. So you can hide treats under rocks, branches, just different things on your walk. So it's a little bit harder for them to find. There's a lot of dead leaves around in the parks at the moment. So putting them under dead leaves as well is a good one. And again, you might have to help them. You might have to kind of show them where those treats are under a rock, but that's absolutely fine because they're going to get better at it of their own accord. And then the next version, which is a bit more advanced, is actually putting treats on top of things that they've got to go over. So it might be something like there's a bench in the park and you put a couple of treats on the bench, so they've got to go up onto the bench on their back legs to take the treats off the bench. It might be that there's a couple of logs that you could put the treats on top of that they've got to kind of jump over to get hold of the treats. Or it might be that if there's something like a dry stone wall with like a bunch of gaps in, you could put treats in there and then they've got to kind of sniff the treats out on the wall as well. So that's more advanced. Step 2 is more advanced. I've done it before. I did it in the park quite a few years ago with Joey when there was a massive tree that had fallen down. So it was kind of on its side, but it was plenty wide enough for him to walk over. So I put a load of treats on top of it. He had to climb up onto this the trunk of this tree and then walk along it as well. So it was physical exercises as well as mental exercise for him. So if you can try and do at least one of those on your walk as well every time you go for a walk, even if it's just literally a case that every time you go past a grass verge you do a scent work exercise with them and you just throw a load of treats on the floor, that will be enough because you'll be doing that a few times on a walk then. So that will easily add up to 5 or 10 minutes of scent work with them when they're on the walk. So that's the second thing I want you to add in. So you've got your training to add into every walk, got your scent work to add into every walk, And then I also want you to add in some play to every walk as well. So the games that you play with your dog can be anything that they enjoy. I've put down common ones, but again, same as with the training exercises, you might want to add other ones to that. So fetch, and again, although we think of it as being an exercise that you would do off the lead, you can still do it on the lead. So I can't, Joey still really loves the ball. I can't throw a ball for him and get him to chase it because it wouldn't do him any good at all. So what I do is I roll the ball for him instead. So it's a much slower version, but he can still fetch the ball and pick it up and bring it to me. So there's no reason why you can't do it, even though they're on a short lead. Tuggy is a great one to do because again, you can do that on a short lead as well. So have a tuggy toy in your bag. When you've got plenty of space, get the tuggy toy out and have a really good game of tug with them. Something like that will really tire them out as well. Tuggy's quite a physical game for them. Just make sure with both of those exercises, when you're doing your fetch and your tuggy, when you're ready to take the ball or the tuggy toy off them, that you're swapping them for something. So use a treat, offer them a treat in exchange for the ball or in exchange for the toy. So they're nice, easy ones to do with toys. There's also, you can do without toys as well. You can do doggy parkour or sort of outdoor agility type stuff. And that is more if you've got sort of an open space, again, like park or woods or something like that. And it's taking advantage of what's already there. So as I said before, if there's a bench, can we teach them to jump up onto the bench and do a sit on the bench? If there's some playground equipment, could you get them to kind of weave around the swings in the kids' playground? Are there any kind of logs or branches that you could get them to jump over or even to go under as well? Are there any rocks that you can get them to jump up onto? So when you're out and about on your walk, start kind of keeping an eye out for obstacles that you think, yeah, we could go round that or over that or under it or through it, or we could sit on that. And just invent your own little kind of outdoor agility course without having to actually bring any equipment along, just using the equipment that's already there. So they're going to be your games. So you can try and incorporate just one of those games, even if you just do one training exercise, one scent work exercise and one game with them in a half-hour walk. You're already massively increasing the benefit that they're getting from the walk, and you're going to be exercising them a lot more physically and mentally so that they're more tired out at the end of that walk. If you incorporate all three of them into every walk, it's going to be a really, really busy walk. They're going to be shattered at the end of that. So you should have a really settled, happy dog afterwards. Okay, so that's making the most of your walk. So hopefully that's been really helpful. So last of all, we're going to move on to one of my favourite things, which is making our meal times into activities. So this is something that I try and get everyone to do anyway, whether they're in lockdown or not, especially if you've got the kind of dog where they're a working breed dog and they need to be kept busy mentally. So we've got 3 different opportunities here. And what you might want to do, even if your dog's normally only on 2 meals a day, you could take that allocation of food for the day and break it down into 3 instead of just 2. So they've got breakfast, lunch and tea. And then you could have one of the activities for each of the exercises. So you could do homemade activity toy in the morning, scent work for lunchtime, and then Kong toy or something in the evening. So they've got 3 good times a day when they've got an activity there. So I've got some little videos of these to show you. So I'm going to show you these and talk you through them. So first one, we have got homemade activity toys. So with our homemade activity toys, we're just making things out of things that we've already got. So it might be recycling, cardboard boxes, plastic, that sort of thing. So here we've got cardboard tube, we've got a cardboard box, I've got some kind of scrunched up paper there as well. And then I've just got Joey's kibble in that little tub there, and I've got some little pieces of cheese. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put all of these bits of treats into the tubs. So I've got bits of the kibble, and I'm going to put that into the cardboard boxes, into the toilet rolls, and then I'm going to put them all into each other as well. So I'll just skip through so you can see what I'm doing. So what I did here was I've just put some of the kibble into that toilet roll tube there. And then if you fold down one end, it's quite easy because they fall out of the other end. But if you fold down the other end as well, it makes it much more difficult for them. You can fold down both of the ends. And that's just a really kind of simple one there. And then we've got scrunched up paper there as well, so we can put treats in there. And then they're going in the box as well. So what I've done there is I've made sort of lots of little ones, then I've put them in a bigger box, which is quite hard. You can make it easy. You could just start off with the toilet rolls first of all, and then once they get the hang of it, you can put them inside. And if you wanted to make it even more difficult, you could put that small box in a bigger box as well. And then it's simply a case of putting that down and kind of letting them go to it. If they're used to doing it, they'll probably just kind of get stuck in and they'll be absolutely fine. If they're not used to doing it, they might need a little bit of help, like with the other SCENTWORK activities that we've done. So it might be that you need to kind of move things out of the way, or open things up to show them what's inside them, just to help them a little bit, help them figure it out a bit more. So that's your homemade activity toys. So that's a really easy one to do. You can use, I've not used any there, I've just used cardboard, but you can use plastic bottles as well. Obviously with something like this, you need to make sure that you're supervising your dog with it, because obviously we don't want them eating the bits of paper and cardboard as well. So you will need to keep an eye on them while they've got something like that. Okay, so this one is using Kong's, or is it, oh no, that's the wrong one, sorry. SCENTWORK. So this one is doing a SCENTWORK activity with your tea. So some of you might have seen this the other day when I did a Facebook Live. So what we're doing here is we're just hiding little bits of food underneath plastic pots. So I've got some plastic, like I think they're kids' cups, plastic kids' cups. And I've just taken Joey's food, it's the same food as on the previous video, and I've just put it on the floor. And then I've covered that up then with these tubs, so that he's got to sniff them out and he's got to knock the tubs over to get them out. So I'll just show you the setup for this one. There we go. Okay, so you can see I've got all these tubs on the floor here, and that's got all his food underneath. So when he comes in, he's going to come in, he's going to be able to sniff where the food is, and then he can either pick them up or knock them over. It doesn't really matter how he gets the food, basically, so long as he gets the food, that's absolutely fine. And that'll take him quite a while then to kind of hoover all of those treats up. So that's his SCENTWORK activity. And then the next one is using activity toys. So in this video, this is with a puppy that I was looking after, and we've used a licky mat and canine connectables, but you can do a similar kind of thing with your Kong as well. So this puppy in this video, Woody, he's fed a raw diet. So I've got his raw food and I've just like smushed it into the activity toys so that he can get them out. So he's got these two here are the canine connectables, and he's got that licky mat there. And he can just roll them around, get them out. So if you think about it, if they're given their food just in a bowl on its own, it's gone in seconds, isn't it? Whereas if we're doing this, it's going to take them much longer to eat it. If you don't feed them a raw food, so if you feed them like a biscuit-based food, the best thing to do is mix it with something that's going to stick it in there. So obviously with that sort of that orange toy there, that canine connectable, if we were to put biscuits in that, it would only take one roll and then they're all going to fall out. So that won't slow them down much. So what you'd need to do is take the biscuits and mix them with something like a bit of cheese spread or peanut butter, and then pack that into the toy, and then it's not going to just fall out straight away. They're going to have to lick to get it out. So that's going to keep them busy for a while. The other thing that you can do with these, so these ones are similar to sort of a Kong toy, so you can do the same thing with a Kong. When the weather's nice like this, you can freeze them as well. So you can freeze them so they're cold, and then it takes them much longer then to get the food out of the toy. So those sort of 3 activities combined for your meal times, the homemade activity toy and the SCENTWORK activity and that activity toy, that's probably in total going to take them a good hour, an hour and a half out of the day when we're giving them something to do. And also it's keeping them busy, so they can't be thinking, right, I'm going to do something I shouldn't be doing, but also it's going to be mentally tiring them out. Again, it's going to be draining that reserve of kind of busy, clever mental energy that they've got that needs to use at the end of the day. Okay, right, so we'll do a recap and then I'm going to do some questions. So solution to the lockdown issue at the moment, I think, is going to be sticking to your routine, making the most of your walks, and turning your meal times into games as well. Okay, so right, let's see. I'm going to open, I'm going to unmute everyone, and then if anyone's got any questions, then they can ask me when I figure out how to do that. There we go, unmute all. Right, there we go. Okay, fire away. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions, anybody? No?
Are we allowed to use the equipment in parks at the minute? Are we supposed to keep away from those?
We're not supposed to touch them, are we?
No.
So my nearest park is Howard Park. So there's signs up saying, yeah, that, you know, playgrounds are closed. But I think I could easily weave round the equipment there without touching anything.
Yeah, I think, well, there won't be many people on it, I guess.
Exactly. Well, yeah, there's never been anyone. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to go to Manor Park where it's all closed in, but somewhere like the one in Padfield or the one in Hadfield where you can kind of walk through it as part of your walk anyway, I would have thought that would be okay. I can't see anyone telling you off for walking through with your dog. It would just be if you'd like start touching the equipment or sat on the swings or anything like that, I think.
Yeah, I often use an upturned log, so.
Yeah, yeah, a log's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
A log's a good one. Yeah, anything like that, any branches or anything that you can do a quick jump over, or if they're high up, go under or something like that. That's a good one to do. Anything else before I let you go back in the sun?
I've been using Manor Park, but just to go, just in, you know, in the dog park that they have.
Yes, yeah, the enclosed bit.
A bit of off lead for him, just to throw the ball and stuff, just for a bit of exercise. I just didn't know if anyone knew that was there, just in case.
Yeah. Is it secure at the moment? Because I know sometimes there's holes in the fences.
Yeah, it's definitely secure at the moment. And there has been some times where there's been other people in there, and obviously I've asked, can I come in as well? We all obviously kept a good distance between each other, but we've enjoyed having a good play. Well,
that's nice. That's it, isn't it? Because I feel like there's a bit of a grey area where we're not allowed to be close to each other, but are our dogs allowed to be close to each other? And I think, you know, we've already taken a lot away from them, that if they see a friend in the park, then it's fair enough to let them go over and say hello, isn't it? I think it just adds to the walk for them, doesn't it, really? Especially when you've got a younger dog and you're trying to do socialisation with them as well.
Oh, definitely. I think I've had because Briar recall's pretty good, so she kind of comes back. But one of the things that's been quite nice for her periodically, I think, is just to bump into a dog and just have a quick play and carry on. I think it's a good. If they do, I suppose it's a good test for recall with distraction, and then
exactly.
You know, you don't get it's a certain defined time. and then come back.
And it makes your day as well, doesn't it? Because you're out and about and you see someone else and their dog.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're like delighted that there's someone else.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Right. Any other questions, anyone, before we finish off?
One of the things I've been doing out with Briar, because she was going through a bit of a phase of seeming to react to people wandering around if they've not got dogs.
Yeah.
So with what I've actually noticed with where we normally walk on the fields of Wales, there's a lot more people walking past without dogs than there is normally.
That's a good point, actually.
Which suddenly occurred to me the other day, because I started using an opportunity with it to get her to sit and look at me and take a treat.
Yeah.
Rather than reacting at these odd haven't got dogs, because she's always, from being, I don't know why, but from a
I remember Joey
always...
going through a bit of a phase of that, actually, when he was younger. It's like, if you've got a dog with you, you're all right, almost, because I think if they're a bit wary of people, but there's another dog there, the pleasure of seeing the other dog outweighs the fact that they're a bit anxious because there's people there, so she can concentrate on going and saying hello to the other dog, and that'll distract her. Whereas if it's just people on their own, it's just them. There's nothing to distract her, is there?
That's it. She's gone through phases of it, but she'll start to do it again. So what I thought was, as we've got people who aren't walking dogs, and she needs to stay away, I've tried to do it. So I've been doing it as a bit of a training exercise to look at me and take a treat and stay with me, and it's actually working really well.
Oh, good. I think that's a really good idea.
Well, I was going to say, because I was hoping A, that was the right thing, but B, if anybody else is out and about, that might be a good one to incorporate, because people's walking habits are different than what they are normally. There'll be people on the walks you'd normally go on that wouldn't normally be there because of the restrictions. So especially if it's a pup, that might actually help a bit, because it might actually give you a different kind of person than what they'd normally see.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah. Because people that would maybe normally drive somewhere to go for a walk are obviously having to stay closer to home, aren't they?
Yeah, and I'd not kind of factored that in. It was. I think, I can't remember what day it was. It was this week. It was either Wednesday or Thursday, and we were out, and I had to make a stop and do it on a number of occasions. And by the time we were walking back, she actually came up and looked at me, because there was a chap who normally would have been a prime candidate for a wolf, because he was like fiddling about with his bag and he looked a bit suspicious.
Big scary man.
He'd have been a prime candidate for a bark. She didn't. She looked at me. So I thought, oh, good, it's going in. But then it occurred to me that might be
perfect. That's really good. Yeah, right. I think that's it. I think if we're making, if we're out and about on our walks and like getting a bit of training in there, we could end up with almost better trained dogs at the end of walks than when we started, because they're going to be so used to just focusing on us and working with us as well. So
because
I don't
can't run off and just
why it should go backwards. I've just realised that no one can see me. There we go.
There you go.
Right, well, what I'll do is, so I've recorded this, so I can somehow probably upload it when I've figured that out, and I'll do a PDF of the handouts as well, and I will make them available as well, so that you can all have those, and then you can kind of add notes to it if you need to as well. But if anyone's got any questions, obviously just drop me one text or email or what have you. And then I think most of you are already on it, but Jane, have you been in the Facebook group?
I'm sure I'm in it. Am I? I don't know, actually.
Well, there's what I've done is I've set up like a Facebook group for kind of gossip in the area. And what we're doing is on Monday, we're starting a 14-day challenge. So the plan is that each day for 14 days starting on Easter Monday, I'm going to give you a different challenge to do with your dogs. And then you can then upload a photo or a video to the group, and then we'll have like prizes and things like that. So if you fancy joining in with that, if you don't know, if you can't find it, just drop me an email and I can send you the link to it.
Thank you.
So I've got loads of ideas lined up. I'm trying to decide. I've got an idea for Monday which I really want to do, but I don't know whether it'll be too tricky. I don't really want to throw you in at the deep end straight away, but we will see. We will see what happens. Right. Okay. I hope that's been helpful for you all.
Yes, thank you.
And have a lovely rest of weekend, and hopefully I will see you all on Monday then.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye.